Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. I just have a real quick video that I want to talk to you about, and it is 5 mistakes to avoid during races. Now I know racing is an extremely important time, and when you're racing, you want to give it all out. You want to give your 100% effort. So these are a couple of things to avoid that can take away from your best performance. The reason I'm making this video is because the last race that I had, the Nike race, I didn't do too well. I ran my worst race of the entire cross-country season, which was very sad at the time. It was because I made every single one of these mistakes on the day of racing. And it was horrible, it was some bad decision making, and after making those mistakes and recognizing them, I just felt like I should share them with you guys so you don't make the same mistakes as well. The first one is over/under sleeping. This one is extremely important, is because sleep is so important for your performance. I heard this one guy give a TED talk about sleep, saying it's the best performance enhancing drug, which is funny sounding, but it's true. Our body needs sleep to just do basic activities, and especially when you're racing, especially when you're performing at a high level, you need your correct amount of sleep. But you also don't want to sleep too much. Like for me, I'm used to 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Sometimes I can get by on 7 and 6, just way too little. I'm exhausted on the race day and I just won't perform as well. If I get 10 hours of sleep, that's way too much sleep. And if you wake up, just say like a 9, for me, that's in the middle of an REM cycle, which is a whole nother thing. But essentially, if you sleep too much, it also takes away from your performance because you're groggy, and sometimes it doesn't help your body as well. The next tip, or the next mistake you need to avoid, and this one is big, and is not eating too much or too little food before your race. And if you're like me, I have a very sensitive stomach, so you have to be very careful about what you eat before your race. And this is always the hardest part, especially for cross country, because it really affects your stomach. The day of the Nike race, I ate this massive meal, this huge breakfast. I was at the hotel. Here's some pictures of it, and it was amazing. It was a great breakfast, but it was so much food in my stomach. And I ate it only 3 hours before the race, which may sound fine, but your body takes 4 hours to digest a medium-sized meal, and that was a large meal. So while I was racing, my body was still trying to digest those foods. So it's not good to eat too much food, because your body can still be digesting it, and you don't want to feel that in your stomach, and it's horrible if you eat too much food, and that is definitely going to take away from your performance. But it's also true in the opposite. If you eat nothing before your race, just like that's horrible. Don't do that, because you're gonna feel the lack of energy that you have. So you gotta find a good balance. What I usually like to do is have oatmeal 2 to 3 hours before my race. The next thing is to not eat foreign foods. This one's big. This one is foods that mess up your stomach, foods that you're not used to having. Like, for me, I'm not used to having, burgers. I don't have burgers every single day, and I definitely don't have burgers every single day before my race or before my training. So if I were to have a burger right before I do a 5K, my stomach would probably be messed up by that. So you don't want to have foods that your stomach is not used to processing before a race. And the more you practice with it, the more you're kind of get used to it. Alright, so the next tip, not regarding food, it's more of like when you're at the race. And this is for track or cross country, but especially for track. And it's avoiding extensive sunlight exposure. Sunlight exposure, especially if you're in like a southern state or if you're racing in the summer, is extremely damaging. Like if you're out in the sun hours and hours before your race, especially if it's a hot day, that can be extremely detrimental, because sun exposure takes away like energy from you, literally, and you'll feel it. If you're just walking around in the sun, not even exercising, you will feel less energized. And it's happened to me before. I was at a track race and I had to get there at 10 a.m. in the morning, and it was kind of cloudy, and I had to race at 3 p.m. and the entire day it was 90 degrees, all sun, and we just felt drained at the race when I raced at 3 p.m. So there was like long hours and hours we were just out in the sun, and we just felt so weak because we were out in the sun. So you definitely want to stay in the shade. So those are the 4 kind of basic ones, pretty small ones you can do, or you should do, every single race day. Even during your training days, if you start incorporating these small disciplines, this will just help your performance overall. And just making sure to sometimes it's good to just have a little checklist and just checking off, make sure you have good sleep, you have the right foods, and you're not spending too much time in the sun. Just like these simple things will really help your performance overall. Now, the last reason, the fifth mistake to avoid, is really important, has to do with your mindset. But I actually recorded this on a different video, so we'll let me from the past take it over. Okay, so I share all those mistakes, so of course we can improve and we don't have to make them in regards to racing. But there's one big mistake that I didn't talk about that I kind of wanted to share with you, and it's the mistake of overthinking. The mistakes of the race anxieties, which I feel like every runner has it at some points. I know some runners feel it much more than others. I definitely have had my share of running anxiety, specifically for races. And for me, I was really getting that. The day of the race, I was thinking so much about the race. And even the days before then, I had worried, and I had trained a lot for this race and I was in good shape, but I had been thinking about it so much that stress is just so unhealthy, especially for running. Because if you're not relaxed, you're not going to be physically relaxed, and you're just not going to perform well. Because I think that just the thing that I learned from this race is you really have to enjoy what you do. You really have to just kind of let running happen. But just if I would have relaxed and just not thought about, not worried about this race so much, it would have gone so much better. So if I want to encourage you as the audience going into your next race, or even if you're just training for whatever sport it may be, it's to think less. It's to just enjoy the process. Enjoy the training, as painful as it may be, and just kind of let your training come. You don't need to, it's good to learn, it's good to improve, and yes, you want to acknowledge your failures and improve upon them, but to just enjoy the process and take each day at a time. Alright, so that is it in regards to the 5 mistakes to avoid on racing. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope these have been informative, and I hope you guys will continue to perform your best and enjoy running. And have a blessed 2022.